Good afternoon. My name is Paul Harwood. I'm the Regional Lead for Economic Development in the Guildford office of Highways England. First, can I introduce Highways England, a name that may not be familiar to some of you. Highways England is the reincarnation of the Highways Agency as a public company, similar to Network Rail, and our obligations, which are set out here, or some of them are what you would perhaps expect of a National Highway Authority, but I would draw your attention to our obligation to encourage economic growth. As these headlines show, our network is relatively small in terms of length, but is hugely important to the economy and represents a massive capital investment. And here's what it looks like in London and the South East. But our network is already under strain, particularly in the South East, and the situation is forecast to deteriorate. As part of the roads investment strategy, major capacity enhancements are being prepared near Heathrow and Gatwick on the M4, the M23 and the M25. In broad terms, each scheme will produce an additional lane of capacity in each direction by using the hard shoulder as a running lane. This is supplemented by extensive use of technology to monitor and manage traffic. These schemes will be implemented over the period to 2020. But after 2020, there's a particular problem with the southwest quadrant of the M25, which means that further interventions will be needed, and to continue widening the M25 may not be a viable or acceptable option. Looking further ahead, we need to consider whether there are alternatives to the M25. The Department for Transport will take forward a strategic study which will look at long-term options for the southwest quadrant of the motorway. The strategic study will look at all modes of transport and at the possibility of providing alternative routes, as well as expanding the M25 itself. Now turning to our role in airport expansion. During the period up to the Davis Commission report, we've been engaged with all three of the shortlisted promoters from an early stage. Working with them, we have agreed improvements to their original proposals to make them safer and more reliable. We have also engaged with the Airports Commission, working as a part of DFT, but as then we were a part of the DFT, we did not participate in the Airports Commission's formal consultations. As we're aware, the Airports Commission have recommended the proposed Heathrow Northwest Runway proposal. This is a plan showing how it will affect the M25 in particular. The M25 and its links to the M4 will be in tunnel beneath the new runway. We're aware that the idea of putting the M25 into tunnel has caused some controversy. In our discussions with Heathrow promoters, we have given particular attention to the tunnels. We have asked that the main carriageways of the M25 should be placed in separate tunnels and in separate tunnels from the link roads. This creates 4 separate tunnels, which means that most incidents should be contained to one carriageway. The tunnels will also be sited away from the existing motorway, so we can minimize delays in construction. So in simple terms, we build the new tunnels, we build the new carriageways, and then we move the traffic across from the existing carriageways onto the new carriageways. It's a fairly standard technique. We've used a similar technique for the M25 column services, where we had to build a bridge carrying a link road beneath the motorway. We built a temporary M25, we put the traffic on it, we built the bridge, and we moved the traffic back onto the bridge. And this is a further diagram just to give you an idea of what the arrangement should be. And here's one we prepared earlier, as the saying goes. The Belcommon Tunnel is about the same length as the Heathrow proposal, but Heathrow would have 4 tunnels for the M25 and its link roads instead of the 2 shown here. There would also be a further tunnel for local road traffic. As has been stated, air quality is a major issue for expansion of Heathrow, and road traffic is a major contributor to air pollution. And air pollution from the M4 was a problem for the previous proposal, the PSDH proposal for a third runway at Heathrow. However, improvements in engine technology, that's motor vehicle engine technology, are reducing pollution already, and this is set to continue. And we've noted that the Airports Commission analysis shows that by 2030, pollution from the M4, leaving aside, as I understand there are different issues on the local roads, but pollution from the M4 will no longer be an impediment to the expansion of Heathrow. And here's a graph and a table. The graph shows how nitrogen oxide levels have fallen nationally as engine technology has improved. And the table, which is probably a little bit difficult for you to see, shows how progressively more stringent controls of emissions are reducing the pollution that's coming from road vehicles. And as old vehicles are scrapped, pollution will fall further. We also need to have regard to how much of the traffic on our network is actually from Heathrow. And I did a quick calculation from the Airports Commission background documentation. As you can see, the highest proportion would be on the M4 between junctions 2 to 3. And of the demand there, about 30% of the demand would come from Heathrow. But if we move to the M3, immediately south of the M25, the proportion is only 5%. So even quite close to Heathrow, we're getting fairly small percentages of demand from the motorway. And in general, airports account for a small proportion of overall traffic on our network. So in conclusion, an expanded Heathrow will require improvements to our network in the immediate vicinity of the airport, and there are viable proposals in our view to achieve this. There is a wider problem of congestion, but airports and expansion of them are only a small part of this. The schemes and studies in the roads investment strategy will address the wider issue. And these conclusions are substantially the same if Gatwick were to be expanded. Thank you.